So, hey guys, it's another StoryTime experience talky thing where I talk and I have art in the background. I actually got the inspiration to do this audio off of a couple of other YouTubers. I was working on some commissions and I was listening to some story times because sometimes music and audiobooks only do so much and I love them, but sometimes I just like hearing people talk, especially when I'm in like a bad mood. And I'm not in a bad mood now, that was before. But the Storytime person I was watching, they eventually got onto all of their bad car accidents and junk stories. And I thought, and I'm like, I've never really been in a car accident, but I do have a fun story about me trying to get my license and why it was fucking cursed. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, maybe I should talk about that one, because I keep talking about wanting to do more like funny stories that have happened in my life, because people seem to think my life is really sad because I've gone through a lot of shit, and it's like I've gone through some shit, but it's not all of my life is shitty. So, I don't know what that noise was. But because of that, I thought, well, I'll just tell some stories. So a bunch of my close friends already know this, but I'm one of those people that didn't get their license right away. I originally was, and I should explain that before I go into this so people can understand why I waited as long as I did, because especially in California, like, getting a license really is a necessity. I mean, it's kind of a bitch to not have one, and it's annoying, and when you do, it does make your life a lot easier, at least where I live. I know a lot of people who use Uber and junk like that, but I don't got the money to do that all the time for things I need, so driving was the best option. But anyway, so we're going to backtrack to high school Michie. So I was about 18, I was getting out of high school, and I was starting to learn how to drive. And I didn't want to get my license at 16 because I just didn't think I needed it, because Cody had his license, and we were both in high school, and we were dumb, and he drove me everywhere, so it didn't really matter. We didn't really go places. It was kind of like, oh, we're going on a date? Well, Cody's picking me up. Oh, we're going here? Cody picks me up. It's just kind of that thing. Like, I was never a bitch and be like, so Cody, I want to go to the mall with just my friends and not you. Can you take me? No, it was never like that. So, I had actually gotten a car first because my family had been saving up for years and years and years since myself and my brothers were born. They started slowly saving up over time so they can get us our first cars and stuff with savings bonds. And so I had about, I think my mom said like $3,000 saved up for a car. And so Cody knew a guy when he was going to school, because he was at his technical school at the time, who was selling his car, and he was like, oh, this will be perfect for Michelle, get this car, you'll learn on it. So I bought the car, and it was stick, and I learned right away that I suck at driving stick. I suck really, really hard. I understand the principle of stick, and if I'm ever in a bind, I could, like, get away. I probably won't get that far, but I can get away. That kind of situation. And then stuff happened, and that car ended up hitting a mountain, not because of me, but the car was totaled, so then I had no car, and there was also some family issues going on, and so getting a license was the last thing on my mind at that time. So because of that, I ended up not getting my license because I really didn't need it. I didn't really have bills. I mean, I had my job, but my parents worked from home and they didn't mind driving me to work. And since my jobs back then, I usually worked with friends, or all of my retail jobs were really, really, really close to my parents' house. Like, all of them were less than a 15-minute drive away. I mean, like, too far to walk, but it's doable by car. And so it was never a big hassle. My school was also close at the time, so it all worked out. And then I started wanting to get my license right around my 20s, and I was like, okay, maybe I should start learning now. And learning the actual part wasn't the hard part, but I seemed to have really, really bad luck when it came to getting my license. I personally think the DMV I went to was cursed, because it only happened at this DMV, and the moment I went to another DMV, I literally had no problem. But so I was ready to take my test. I was in my 20s. I had got my permit. I'd been practicing. Everything was fine and dandy. And then I also did driving school, but driving school, at least the one I went to, was kind of bullshit. It was like 3 2-hour lessons driving in a car, and I don't think that's enough time. If you took driving lessons and it was like that and you passed, good for you, but I really didn't learn that much in that time because it was mostly like, oh, we're taking surface streets, you got to go onto the speed limit, and the brake pedal was like really, really, really fucking hard to push because I had a different car each time. But they're like, oh, that's on purpose, so you have to mean it. And I'm like, but real brakes are supposed to be soft, you're not supposed to shove your foot into the bottom of the car to get your car to stop. But anyway, I went to take the written test, and I had actually highlighted a bunch of stuff in my little book, and I had that in my bag. I didn't cheat, but I had it in my bag, and I took the bubble fill in the blank circle test with a pencil, and I was super proud of myself, and I was like, oh, I knew all of these, I'm super happy. And I gave the lady my little thingy, and she gave it back and said that I failed. And I'm like, oh, what did I fail on? She's like, oh, you just failed. And I'm like, okay, but how bad did I fail? When the lady first gave me my written test, I kind of freaked out. I'm like, Coach, did I miss like every single problem? I missed either one or two. Yeah, one or two. I can't remember, away from like passing. And one of them I knew for sure I got right because I had highlighted it in the book, and I remember what it was. I'm like, oh, this one, and I even pulled the book out, and I'm like, oh, well, but this is the question for this one, right? And it says right here in the California, driver's handbook at the time, because the book changed now since I got my license, that I was right. And the lady looked at the book, looked at the tests, looked at the answers, and said, oh, well, it doesn't fit my answer key. And I'm like, but you just admitted it's right. And she's like, yeah, but it doesn't fit the answer key, so you failed. And I was just kind of like, okay, when can I reschedule? And the lady lied to me because I found out you can literally reschedule it for the next fucking day. But she told me I had to wait like 3 weeks to reschedule for the written test. So I rescheduled, I passed, I got my permit, I practiced. That's when I did the driving school thing. It was all fine and dandy. And then I went to actually take the behind the wheel test. It had been about, the first time, I think it was about a month, maybe? Month or 2 months of me driving. And I wanted to practice driving on my own, like driving myself to work or driving with my parents. My parents didn't really like that, and it kind of gave me really low confidence in my driving skills because they were like, oh, well, you're too slow, we gotta do this. And I'm like, well, this is what they teach you to drive in the stupid driving school, like, that you're paying for, because I thought it was BS. And so then I get to the driving test, and it was raining. Yeah, this was the first time. It was raining, and I had a very, very nice teacher, not a teacher, the guy who takes the test with you. I forget what they're called. And he was in the car with me, and it was raining, but it was like, this is important. It was raining, but it was fully sunny out, and it wasn't cloudy, okay? It was like 2 p.m, and it was like, I didn't think anything of it because it was bright out. And so I'm driving and I do it and I park because I thought, they didn't say anything. And usually if you fail right away, they make you stop and they explain what you did wrong. And so since he didn't say anything, I did the whole test, which is like relatively 15 minutes. The driving test is really short in California. I get to the parking spot. I was super proud. I thought I passed. I look at him and he's just got this deadpan look on his face and says, oh, you failed. And I'm like, oh, what did I do wrong? And I thought, maybe I stopped too soon at a stop sign. Maybe I turned too wide, because I will admit at the time my turns were really, really wide. And he's like, oh, well, it's raining and you didn't have the lights on. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, it's raining and you didn't have the lights on. I'm like, but it's broad daylight out. And there were many cars on the side that didn't have their lights on. They're like, it doesn't matter. It's an automatic fail if you don't have your lights on in the rain. And I'm like, even if other cars aren't doing it and if it's completely sunny and I don't need it? And he's like, yeah. Other than that, though, you would have completely passed, so you should reschedule for like a week from now. And I'm just like, and then he got out of his car and just kind of went on to the next person. I just kind of sat there in my mom's car, just in shock, like, what just happened? I didn't pass because of a technicality. And so then because of that, I rescheduled as soon as possible, but for some reason the DMV was like booked up solid. I think this is back when I don't want to get it wrong, but California passed a law to where illegal immigrants could get driver's licenses. And so because of that, like the DMVs were now flooded with people trying to get driver's licenses. I remember because when I went to take my test again, because I had to retake the written test. I'll explain that in a minute. The lady was surprised I asked for an English test, because I can't read Spanish. And so I remember they were like booked up solid for about another month or so, I believe. And then I went to take the test again, and this time I had a lady as an instructor, and we were in the car, and the first thing she asked was, do I know English? And I said, yes. And she's like, oh, okay, good. I just didn't know if I needed a translator or not. So start off the test. Everything's fine. We're about to get out of the DMV. And now I should emphasize, this time, the driving school took me. I remember because I had a very nice teacher lady who was a different lady this time around, who drove me to the DMV to take my test in the driving school car. And so she was sitting outside, and the lady was in there with me while we were taking the test, and I was about to exit the DMV, and there was a stop sign. So I was about to start my test, and I'm about to leave, and this truck comes in, like a Suburban or SUV or something, comes in, runs the stop sign, so I have to stop at the stop sign while I was going, because I already stopped, so the bus wouldn't hit us. And the bus ran through, honking their horn, and then just parked in the DMV, and I was kind of shocked, and I was like, well, okay, that was terrifying, so whatever. And so I go to start, and the lady's like, okay, turn around, and I'm like, and she's like, yeah, turn around, you failed. And I'm like, how did I fail? And she's like, well, you double stopped at a stop sign. And I'm like, but that car was going to hit me if I had kept going. She's like, yeah, but you just broke the law because you double stopped at a stop sign. I'm like, but the car was going to hit me and us. What? Turn around and park in the parking spot. And I'm like, okay. So I turn around, and the lady from the driving school was there, and she looked really fucking confused. And she came up to the car, and she asked me, she's like, hey, is everything okay? I saw what happened. And the DMV worker lady was like, oh, no, it's fine. She just failed. And the driving instructor was like, wait, what? Why'd she fail? Like, nothing happened. She's like, oh, she double stopped at a stop sign. And I saw, like, the gears turning in the lady who worked at the driving school, and was like, that car would have hit you, but because she double stopped at a stop sign, then the DMV lady was like, well, I used to be a cop, and if you double stop at a stop sign, it's a crime, and it's against the law, and so, yes, technically she failed the test. And I'm like, so then I'm sitting in the car, trying to pretend I don't exist, while the driving instructor and the lady from the driving school, or the DMV lady and the lady from the driving school, are just chewing each other out, screaming at each other in the DMV parking lot. And I'm just texting my mom saying, so I don't want to go to this DMV anymore because I feel like it's cursed. Because I do feel like it's cursed, because it was all shit ever happened at the same DMV. And so the lady came back in, and I like got out, and she's like, move. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it was the lady from the driving school, and she's like, I can't believe that bitch. And she was going off and off. She's like, I need to drive because this is bullshit. This is not fair to you. I'm going to tell your parents. I'm going to refund your family. I'm like, whoa, like, what's going on? And then the lady at the other thing, like, knocked on the window and pretty much said, like, well, see, if I said she failed, she fucking failed. So just try again next time. And then, like, walked off. And the driving instructor lady started cursing at her in another language. So I don't know what it was. But I knew it wasn't Spanish. And I knew it wasn't Spanish, and I knew it wasn't Hebrew, because that would be really extreme. But so she was just, like, cursing this lady out, and then she turns to me, she's like, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna call my boss and get your family, like, and I'm like, it's fine, it's cool, I guess I should have let the car hit me. And she was like, no, it's stupid. So they drive me home. The lady explains to my mom what happened. They gave my mom a refund check, and my mom was like, no, you did your job, like, here, take it, but screw that DMV. And so I was just so I remember, like, I was so angry, and I told Cody, he was just like, you need to not go to that DMV. I'm like, yeah, I just shouldn't go to that DMV anymore. They're apparently bloody cursed. So by the time I was able to make another driving test, because of the whole immigrant thing, getting licenses, my actual my permit expired, so I had to retake the written test and everything else. And my mom was like, okay, well, I set your appointment for this. I'm like, no, I set my appointment for another DMV. It's still in our town, but I'm not going back to that DMV. I'm just not doing it. My mom's like, okay, just calm down. And I'm like, no, it's bullshit. Every time I've gone to that DMV, it's been bullshit over bullshit over bullshit. And I know people shit on the DMV, but, like, I'm about to talk about how not all DMVs are bad. And because, like, they're like, oh, well, it's just the DMV, they're all bad. It's like, no, they're not all fucking bad. And I learned this firsthand. So we go to the next DMV, which is like a new DMV that had just opened up at the time. And, you know, I had an appointment for the written test, and I go to the line, I give them my little thing, you know, I say I have an appointment, and they bring me up to where I'm supposed to go at the window, and they're like, oh, okay, do you need an English test or a Spanish test? And I'm like, well, an English test, I don't speak or read Spanish. And the lady's like, oh, okay, do you want a digital or a traditional, or a physical, because it's going to be a little harder to find a physical English test. And I'm like, I could take a digital test? And she's like, yeah, we just got these computers set up, you can just go take it, it's a touchscreen thing. And I'm like, okay, I'll go take the digital test. And so I went to the digital test, and it was so fucking nice. Oh, it was so fucking nice. I loved that thing. It was a touchscreen computer, and I got done in like 5 minutes, and I got 100%, and I was super proud of myself. And I just really liked that. I really liked it. I passed. I got my permit. I was super happy because I got 100%. I was like, oh, yay! And so then, at that time, though, I decided that I was going to wait to take my actual physical driver's test again. I wasn't going to do the driving school anymore. I wanted to practice in the car I was going to be driving in. And at this time, Cody and I had moved out and moved into his parents' place because of financial reasons. And so Cody gave me my car for the most part because he had a spare car at the time. So he gave me the car he used to daily. And it was an automatic, thank fucking God, and not a manual. But, I would practice in it, and I practiced 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 in it for a good, like, 6 months, I think, where I drove all the fucking time. It was great, but, like, moving out is when I really realized, like, I really needed a car, because especially where Cody's parents live, there's, like, nothing within walking distance. It's really fast by car, but like, really long by bike, and it's up a really, really, really steep hill, so walking and biking and all that junk was just out of the question. So when it came time for my test, I had made my appointment myself at that same DMV I took the digital test, because I told my mom, I'm like, fuck that other place, because this place just seems to have their shit together. And so she's like, okay, when's the test? And I was like, oh, it's this day and whatever. She's like, do you want the driving school to come take you? And I'm like, no, I want to do it in my car. I later found out I couldn't do it in my car because I didn't have the insurance on my car because it wasn't technically mine yet. So I had to do it in the car with someone who had the legal licensing and insurance on the said car I was going to be driving, so I ended up driving my parents' car. And so I went to my parents' house. I did a practice run in their car because my parents have a Prius, and going from an old automatic, I'm nothing on my car, I love my car, but going from an old automatic to a Prius was really, really weird because their brakes are also different. Not that it's bad, it's just it was really different for me. And so then I went to take the test, and everything was good, and then we drive up, and there was a person standing outside the DMV, like, open gate, like cars go in, and a security guard, security guard, like armed security was next to them, and they were like, oh no, all the computers are down, we can't do anything until it comes back up. And I was like, I literally was about to cry. I was sitting there in my mom's car, and I was about to cry. I'm like, I don't think I'm meant to have my license, because all this shit is happening where it seems to be telling me maybe I am not as good of a driver as I thought I was, maybe I shouldn't be driving. This is probably just all signs from whatever powers above us that I should not be behind the wheel. And my mom's like, no, we're going to still try, because you're not doing anything on the computers, you're taking the driving test. So my mom drives up, and I was like, no, our computers are down. And my mom's like, oh, no, she's taking a driving test. And he's like, behind the wheel or written? And I'm like, behind the wheel. And he's like, oh, well, come on in. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, go on in and park. And so we go in and park. I get my info, which they pretty much all did on, like, sticky notes, because they didn't have any of the forms. Don't know how they didn't have any of the fucking forms, but there was this really nice lady who was, like, covered in X-Men tattoos behind the wheel, behind the thing. I remember because I really liked her Rogue tattoo, and I was like, oh, hey, like, is there anything I need to know? I've never been to this, like, I've only been to this DMV one before. She's like, oh, no, it's fine, you've got a really great instructor, everything's fine and dandy, you'll be good, just be yourself, and no. So, we go back in the car, we get into the line, because there's, like, a line to get in, and my new DMV instructor person came in and sat with me, and we started the test. He was very nice. I wish I knew his name, but he was a very nice guy. And we're starting, and there's this person in the middle of the fucking road. Like, right away, and I'm just sitting here like, oh my god. I'm cursed. And the guy, like, I'm sitting behind her, I'm waiting, this chick's not leaving, and she's, like, in the middle of the fucking road. And, like, and then the teacher told me to drive around. He's like, maybe there's some trouble. We drive around, and the chick's on her fucking phone in the middle of the lane, and So he's like, hold on, stop real quick. And I'm like, okay. So I stop, and he rolls the window down on my parents' car, and he like crumples up a piece of paper and chucks it at her window. And she like looks confused and rolls her window down. And he's like, you know what you're doing is a crime, right? And he starts screaming at the security guard. He's like, this chick's breaking the law, write her up a ticket. And the chick like fumbled with her phone and drove the hell off. And he starts laughing his ass off, and I'm just scared. I'm like, so he's like, yeah, keep going with your test. This is a wild day. So I go through with my test. Everything was great. Everything went wonderfully. I only missed technically one thing on the driving test. I say technically because he pointed out that that in the handbook it's wrong, but it's shit that everyone does. And what it was I would look, make sure it was clear, put my blinker on, look again, and then drive. Apparently, you're supposed to put your blinker on, look, and then go. But I like looking before I put my blinker on because there's assholes on the fucking road. And so, whatever, he didn't actually mark that down. The only thing was I did one wide turn at a light. It was a little wide, but it wasn't too bad. And he was like, you passed. And I'm like, I passed. He's like, yeah, and you're one of the best people I've had in a long time, so congratulations. But we can't print out your info. The computers are down, so you might have to come back like later today. And I'm like, I give the guy a big hug. I started crying, and he's like, are you okay? I'm like, you don't understand what I went through to get this stupid bit of plastic. And he was like, it's cool, just have a good day. And so I told my mom I was super happy. I'm like, I fucking passed, I got my license. And I've had my license ever since, and it was great. And it was such a wild ride trying to get my license, and I thought I should share it to you guys because some people, have great experiences with the DMV and they don't have any problems getting their license. And then there's people like me who I feel are fucking cursed. But yeah, that was fun reliving those memories. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want more story times and junk, tell me what you'd like to know. And as always, I will see you next time. Bye!